Golfers, welcome back to the channel. Today what we're going to discuss is 3 common issues I see regularly on the lesson tee and on the golf course of soft ground, and also people when they're using their wedges. So if you struggle with heavy shots, low launching shots and not a lot of backspin and generally not a lot of control, these 3 issues are related to you. So the biggest thing I always see with people who struggle with their pitching is, the biggest issue I see is they place the golf ball a little bit too far back in the stance. So if you think of the middle of my stance here, we want the golf ball pretty much to be in the centre line of our stance. If we're hitting any wedge shot, that might vary depending on the shot being played, but the middle of our stance is a baseline kind of target at this moment in time. What I see in a regular occurrence is people who play the golf ball almost adjacent to the right big toe, so the ball's a little bit too far back. What that does from there, the further back the golf ball moves, the tendency is the handle is going to move forward compared to the club head. Grips notoriously forward compared to the club head. Then what we're going to do from there is we're going to create quite a steep angle of attack. We're going to drive the leading edge into the ground, almost like this. So the ball's too far back, hands are too far ahead. The other issue I see on a daily basis is when the club goes back, the club face gets really close. So if you think of the grooves on the club face as a good reference point, the club goes back and it gets a little bit too close. If you look at the knuckles on my left hand, they point too much down towards the ground. That creates kind of bone in this left wrist. That's going to automatically close that club face. From there, what we're going to have to do there is we're going to have to add loft. So if the club face is really closed, then we're going to have to get out of that position at some stage, and that's where we see this kind of handle driving forward. The handle's pushed closer to the golf ball. The handle drives forward just to keep the club face open. What's going to happen from there, we could experience shots where the club hits the ground before the golf ball. We create a thin shot, but it's all related and correlates back to the position of the club face. So don't get the position of the golf ball too far back in our stance. Don't get the hands really too far forward. So if you think of where this grip end of the club's pointing, it's almost running down the line of my left hip. That's great if you're trying to hit an iron shot. So issue number 1, ball position too far back. Issue number 2, hands too far forward, digging the leading edge into the ground. We're going to struggle off soft ground. Club face goes back really closed. Through impact, what you'll start to see is you'll start to see this grip end of the club start to work too far away from my left hip. So if you can see that kind of grip moves down and forward through impact. If I've got 10 degrees of bounce on this wedge, if I get my hands too far forward, we create shaft lean. That's going to reduce the bounce and it's going to create low launching shots almost like this. So we're going to move the ball a little bit further forward, so it's just underneath the zip on my jacket or just underneath your sternum. There's a kind of another good baseline. Somebody that struggles with this club face getting really closed, and to set our hands a little bit lower at address, because that's going to allow this left wrist to start to cup a little bit more. If we go a little bit too high, the tendency is the left wrist is going to bow and that's going to close the club face. So just stand a little bit further away, get your hands a little bit lower, and as we walk the club back, we're just feeling like we're cupping this left wrist a little bit more. So you think knuckles pointing back towards your body, and the club face, instead of being really close with the grooves, pointing down towards the ground. You're trying to get the toe of the club a little bit more skyward, or trying to feel like kind of right palm to the sky. So a really good feeling if you struggle with the club face getting really closed, where the right palm gets too much down towards the ground, there's too much bone in this left wrist. All I want you to feel like you're doing is working the club back. Feel like right palm is more notoriously towards the sky, and the knuckles on your left hand are pretty much pointing a little bit more back at your body line. So kind of right palm to the sky, feel that club face nice and open, and kind of feeling hands a little bit lower at address. Feel like you're kind of creating a little bit more cup in that left wrist, so knuckles are pointing back at your body, right palm to the sky. Grooves really feel like they're pointing skyward, just to try and utilise a little bit more of the loft on the club face instead of turning that kind of pitching wedge into an 8-iron. So we're opening the club face just to try and utilise a little bit more of the bounce. So once you go to the other end of the spectrum, what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and get the ball a little bit more in the middle of your stance. So this puzzle, just stand a little bit further away, get your hands a bit lower. That's going to help the left wrist arch a little bit more, create a little bit more cupping. So knuckles pointing back at your body line, as opposed to getting the knuckles too much down towards the ground where we close that club face. On the way through, what we're going to do is we're almost going to feel like the right palm faces a little bit more towards the sky. because that's going to help control the club face a little bit more in an open position. I have too much forearm rotation through impact where the right palm points too much towards the ground. That's going to close the club face, the toe's going to work quicker than the heel, and I'm going to really create shots that go left, and I'm not going to get the ball up in there. So on that release, right palm towards the sky, grooves towards the sky. It's almost like you're trying to balance a cup of tea on the club face. To close the face, you're going to drop that cup of tea. Through chest is working towards the sky in extended fashion. Club face is nice and open. Visualize your balance and a cup of tea on your club face. If you struggle with chunking your chip shots or pitch shots, the chances are the club's actually hitting the ground 2 or 3 inches in front of the golf ball. If you're this golfer, don't do that. Visualize a target maybe 1 or 2 inches before the golf ball. You're just trying to let the trailing edge of the club, so the back edge of the club, interact with the ground. The grip end stops, the club head releases, as opposed to kind of driving that club forward. The club head's left behind the hand. So let the bounce interact with the ground 1 or 2 inches behind the golf ball's our target. And what you're going to do from there is, as the club comes through impact, kind of right palm to the sky is another good analogy, and the grip end of the golf club, don't drag it past your left hip. The grip end of the golf club's almost feel like it points back at the middle of your sternum. Let the club head release past the grip. So you think it's a race between the club head and the grip. When we struggle with pitching, the grip wins that race. It gets too far ahead of the club head. What we want to do is flip that on its head. We want to let the club head release a little bit more, so we want to let the club head get to the golf ball before the grip end does. And how do we do that? We create chest rotating towards the sky, right palm to the sky, and the grip of the golf club working back towards your chest. It's almost the feeling that both elbows are quite close connection to your rib cage, chest to the target. Both elbows are quite close to your rib cage on the way through, and keep that club face nice and open. It's a bit lower at address. Get the ball a little bit further forward. Don't want the club back too close where the left wrist points too much down towards the ground. The left wrist gets bowed. Work the club back. Feeling right palm to the sky, knuckles pointing back at you almost in this action. Don't go too close where the right palm gets towards the ground. So think, combat that, right palm to the sky, knuckles pointing back at your body. Club face has to feel like it's a little bit more open. And on the way through, what I want you to feel like you're doing is just let right palm release towards the sky, grip end of the club working back towards your body, kind of maintaining that cup of tea on the club face and keeping that face nice and open. Let the club head win the race over the grip, almost in this section. You release the club, keep your elbows nice and close to your body. Don't let that left elbow detach itself from your chest. Set up to hit ball further forward, open that club face, release the club, grip end pointing back at the middle of your body, feeling that your chest is working up a little bit more towards the sky. Analogy is you're trying to feel like the club head interacts with the ground 1 or 2 inches before the golf ball. That is only if you struggle with the leading edge digging at the ground and kind of creating too much of an inconsistent strike. So lay the club head 1 or 2 inches behind the golf ball. You're trying to visualize the club head sitting 1 or 2 inches before the golf ball. You're letting the trailing edge interact with the ground. As we release the club, right palm to the sky, grip working back towards your body, and the chest towards the target. Chest working up towards the sky, left shoulder working up towards the sky. So left shoulder working up towards the sky, grip end of the club working up towards the sky. It's going to help us utilise the bounce, and it's going to help you improve your pitching. Hands a bit lower as we come through, club interacting with the ground 1 or 2 inches before the ball. Left shoulder working up, grip end working up, face nice and open, almost in this action. And then let the club interact with the ground 1 or 2 inches before the golf ball, almost like this. Guys, I hope that helps. If you're struggling with your pitching at this moment in time, please get in touch. I'm offering free online Skillest vouchers via the Skillest coaching platform. To qualify for this, how do you enter that? What to do is follow me on the Skillest app, Jamie Allen. What to do is I'll send you a message with a code. All you need to do is upload 2 videos. I'll get back to you within 1 working day. So comment below what you're struggling with in your game at this moment in time. Also, please like and subscribe to the channel.